Okay.
And Sam, you have a book out called The Pilgrims?
The Pilgrim Soul. Yeah, we're in pre-sales right now, and it comes out April 27th.
Awesome. Will you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So it's a book that started out as a conversation between a couple friends of mine about how is there a way where we could potentially argue that consciousness or the self continues after death? Is there something else? Is there something further on, right? And so that conversation led to the book. It led to exploring like what happens after the moment where we all cease. It turned into a very wild adventure story. There's like historical figures and interesting characters, and it was a lot of fun to write. It really was.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Now that I know a little bit more about it, what it's about, I want to read it right now. You said
Awesome.
it comes out what?
April 27th. You can go to
Oh,
sagestowerpublishing.com and check it out, though. You can order a pre-sale.
awesome, awesome. So when you were writing this, did you follow an outline? Did you just kind of free write with the idea after the conversation with your friends? What was that process like for you?
Sure. So I'm an English teacher. This is my class. And
Oh, cool.
yeah, so we're all virtual right now. We're doing one of my planning periods. But it started out largely because I wanted to write a book in order to show my students that I didn't just teach, I also did. And in order to do that, I had to outline, draft, did a lot of research, which was a lot of fun, so that whenever it was time for me to teach students about these great books and poems and pieces of literature throughout history, I could be like, this is why this is such an amazing character development. It's because I tried to do something similar, and it is a lot of work. And so lots of drafting, lots of outlining, lots of revision. And then when I got it picked up by my publishing house, it was even more revision, but it was all worth it. I absolutely love the final product.
That is awesome. And I think that the reason behind why you wanted to write a book is incredible. I mean, I'm an English major, and I would love I would love to know that my teacher who's teaching me has done it, has been there. And that's an amazing story. So when you were going through that whole writing process, what do you think was the most difficult for you?
Shame spirals, mostly. Because what ends up happening is you'll start writing and then you want to procrastinate, or you'll start writing and then you'll have these moments of anxiety where you're like, I can barely read. What am I doing? What does this even mean? And then you just want to like walk off and just eat a bunch of Oreos and stare into space. But luckily, I just kept plugging away. Had some really supportive family and friends that like were beta reading for me and being like, no, 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 the book's actually pretty good. You can keep going, you know.
That's
And
right.
it's always nice to have that kind of push from outside, because a writer can be a little bit lonely. You're living in this entire world inside of your head, and it's nice to let people in and kind of poke around a little bit and reassure you. So that's what helped me out the most.
Definitely. I tell writers all the time that writing is a solo sport, but motivation isn't. You need a support system. You need
Hmm.
those people around you to keep pushing you in the direction that you want to go. Because if not, you do procrastinate. You do start writing and then you say, "Oh my gosh, what did I just write? That's horrible." And then you start second guessing yourself, and then you start editing yourself and revising, and you're your own worst critic no matter what you write. So you do end up kind of walking away from it for a bit and eating a bunch of Oreos and
That's
just
it.
what? So you do need that support system. Without that, it's so easy to procrastinate. It's so easy to just stop midway and not ever finish the project. So I think having just people around you to say, yes, this is what you should be doing, keep going, but also having those beta readers to say, this book is actually really good, you need to finish the story. Both of those needs to be in your support system.
Yeah, I was having a really good conversation with another person on what's called Swell. It's like a podcast, but not. It's weird. And we started talking about how art is made to be like this solo sport, like you were saying. But what's interesting is like if you trace it all the way back, it's really not, right? Art, expression, stories, they're all told in this communal place. Like there's those giant cave paintings from thousands of years ago. Those took place with a crowd of people. Stories were told over fires by the elders to the young people. Like the idea of art and expression being this solo venture is really new. And so to your point, it was just a really interesting thing to think about how, like, yes, the name on the book is mine, but the actual credit is for tons of people, dozens of people, right? People who are, willing to push it, because it really can't be done on your own. Not really, unless you're Tolkien, but there's only one Tolkien.
Or Stephen King, You
Yeah,
never know.
Stephen King.
He
It's
might have
always,
a we don't know about too. You never know.
never know. Never know.
So when you were writing, did you only write when you were inspired? Did you write every day? How did that process work for you, especially working around your schedule of being a teacher?
So I do, and I'm going to push this technique because I love it. I do the procrastination technique, right? The procrastination method. What you do is you have a task, and then you inevitably don't want to do it anymore. So you procrastinate with something of equal value. So what I would do is I'd start grading papers, and I'd be like, I don't want to grade papers anymore. You know what I should do is I should do some writing. So I'd start writing, and I'd be like, I'm tired of writing. I don't want to do this anymore. I should probably get back to those papers. And then, like, through this method that I did daily, I essentially tricked my own dumb brain into writing a book.
But honestly, that is a very, very a valuable method, because when you think about it, I will sit there and procrastinate and procrastinate and procrastinate. And I have so many stories already outlined that I need to sit down and write. But every time I sit down and write, I'm like, I really don't feel like writing. And then I will get up and I'll do something else. I'll go do schoolwork. I'll go do something else that I really don't want to do. And then after a while, I'm like, really just feel like writing now. Like
Yep.
you just kind of have to go back and forth with it.
Gotta trick your brain. It works.
So when you were writing every day, did you give yourself deadlines as far as when you wanted to have certain parts of the book finished?
Absolutely. So if it was, there's different points in the novel writing process that I know you know about, which is like there's certain places where it just flows and it's easy and it's super, and you're just like in a zone. It's beautiful. Knock out 10,000 words like it's nothing. And then there's times where you have to like check your notes. You have to make sure that it's like historically or culturally accurate. You have to make sure that the dialogue is correct and that the story lines up. And so you hit these slogs. So what I would do is, if I was in a slog, I'd be like, you just have to get through this page. You get through a page, you're doing good. If I was in the zone, I would just go until I didn't have anything left. So the only times I really had to set deadlines for myself was when I was like, this is the worst part of writing, because it would be like, write 3 words, look at your notes. Write 4 words, look at your notes. But that's when the goal setting really came in. Write every day, but like it all depended upon what part of the story I was in.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when you're writing, do you write when you are in your classroom? Do you write when you're at home? Do you have a specific place where you only do your writing? What does that look like for you?
So I have 2 kids under the age of 3. I have a couple jobs, and I teach. And so really it's just you find time where you are, right? It's like almost, how the Marines can sleep wherever they are when it's time to sleep. It's like that, but for writing. If you snatch an extra 5-10, you write something down. I also always carry around like little notebooks and
Mhm.
stuff like that, so that if I don't have a computer nearby, I can still get stuff down. So I look like a bit of a nut when I'm walking, and I'll stop in the middle of the street and be like, oh, I gotta write this down. Okay, this actually makes a lot of sense for my characters. I like this. But just whenever I find the time, I take the time. This is how I have to do it. So that's how I do it anyway. What about you? How do you do it?
I'm actually just a full-time student. So when I am not doing schoolwork, I like to tell myself to write. And what happens is I outline and I outline and I outline and then I outline some more. And
Mm,
then I finally get to the point where I'm like, okay, literally there's nothing else I can put in this outline. You just have to get started and write. And by that time I'm like, okay, procrastinate. What else do I have to do? So
right.
eventually I will really get to the point of getting into a habit of this time every day I write, because I do have that luxury of having the space and having the time, and I just need to use it wisely. So when it comes to my writing, I probably have over 40 different books outlined that I
Wow.
really need to sit down and just bust out those first drafts and then go from there. And
Hmm.
that's what I'm working on. I mean, I've only been doing these interviews for about a week, and I have learned so much from so many writers, and it's encouraging, and it also helps push me more towards, okay, you got to sit down and write. You got to sit down and write now.
Hmm. Yeah, all the greats, I mean, Stephen King, as you were saying earlier, he always forces himself to write, I believe it's 5,000 words a day, regardless of where he is or what he's doing. It's 5,000 words a day. Um, it, there's a couple of other famous writers that I can't name off the top of my head right now, but I think it was Fitzgerald that essentially said that writing is just the most painful process that you can't live without. And it's just so weird where it's something you love to do, but you don't want to do it. It's this weird thing that happens to our minds where we're like, I just can't wait to start writing. And then you sit in front of the computer or you sit in front of your typewriter and you're like, I think I'm going to do literally anything else. I want to do
Right.
anything but write. I want to do something that is not writing. And I mean, I figured out what TikTok was, and I really shouldn't be on TikTok because I'm old. I need to not be on that app. But like, you could just scroll and see all these crazy little videos. And I was trying to do something for pushing my book, but I don't need to be on TikTok. I need to be writing more of my books. And so I completely
Hey,
understand.
I'm not on TikTok or Snapchat, so those are like time suckers. You look at those apps and you just get stuck in these hours of watching videos. I'm like, I can't do
Oh
it.
yeah,
I can't.
it's
So
maddening. It's addictive.
what I really need to do is tell myself I'm canceling Netflix until I write my first draft of at least one of my 40 plus books that I have outlined. That's
Oh
what I
yeah,
need to do.
just go on your own forced writer retreat into your own bedroom.
There you go.
That's the way to do it. It really is.
So, do you have other books that you're working on, or what are your goals as a writer from this point forward?
So I have this book is done, getting ready to be released. The second book in the series is done. It's going through proofreading and editing right now, beta reading with my publisher. My third book is being drafted, which is really cool, and it's going to be the last one in this series. And then after I finish my third book, I will be working on a new series which deals with this idea of multiple dimensions colliding in the human psyche, which I'm really excited about.
You seem really passionate about different things that you can't see, like psychology and the afterlife and things like that. Is that something that really drives you and helps kind of inspire you to create your different series?
The things that I'm most motivated by are the components of the human existence that are universal, if that makes sense. So we have all of these little camps and things that we put ourselves in, like it could be skin color, sexual orientation, religion, political affiliations, right? Countries, nationalisms. But the thing is we're all human. We all must be born, we all must experience, and then we all have to die, right? So these things in our lives that are universal are the things that interest me the most. They're the best forms of art. They're the best love songs. They're the best stories and the best poems because they deal with everything, or a little bit anyway, of all of us as a human species. So death is something that we all have to experience, right? In one form or another, affection and connection to something bigger than ourselves is something that we all have to experience, right? The idea of consciousness and learning who you are is something that we all must learn about. We all have to come to those doors, whether with a group or by ourselves. We all have to do it. And so I have just am fascinated by universal concepts. And that's what I just like to write about.
Great. So as a teacher and a writer, do you have any advice that you would give to writers that are first starting out, or even writers who are well on their way?
Yes, right. Continue to do it. Your story matters, right? Your story is so important because nobody else can tell your story like you can. Nobody has your perspective. Nobody has your life experience. You do. And that means that your story is valid. Even when it's frustrating, even when it hurts to write, your story means something. So make sure you put it down so somebody else can experience it too.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the hardest things for writers is to get this idea that we have in our minds, this beautiful story out of our minds and onto paper. And I think that's probably the most difficult part of writing is being able to write your story the way that you see it in your mind. Because it can be a grueling process of choosing what's the best word for this, or how should I write this, what genre is going to be the best way for me to get my story across. All of those things are in the beginning are probably one of the most difficult parts of the entire writing process. I mean, throughout the whole writing process, you're always going to have difficult parts, but I think getting started is one of the most difficult. And I think if you can overcome that hurdle and you can start your writing, then everything else will flow with it.
Oh, yeah. The best books start in the oddest places, right? It began as you might expect, in a hole in the ground. Call Me Ishmael. These just like weird snippets and moments in time that actually aren't beginnings, they're just in the middle. And so they created, and those began these epic adventures and amazing stories that lasted for hundreds of years. And if you're worried about starting your paper or your essay or your novel, just start in the middle. You'd be amazed how far you'll get.
I have never heard that before, but it makes so much sense.
It's true. We're so chronological, right? It's like in the beginning. It's like, no. Nobody needs to hear everything. Like, can you imagine if I came up to you and I said, "Hi, I'm Sam Kane. In 1986, I was born, 9 pounds, 10 ounces, to a loving family." Like, you'd be like, "Why are you talking to me like this? It makes no sense." Instead, you start talking about whatever is relevant in the moment. You don't have to have all this crazy backstory. Let people get there on their own, and you'll be surprised.
I think that is an awesome idea, and that's something that I am going to try this week.
Yes, I'm looking forward to reading it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today. Is there anything else that you want to say to all the writers out there before we go?
I'd like to make a quick plug because I can't help it. Make sure to go to sagetowerpublishing.com. Check out my book. The cover art's incredible. There's really cool synopses. Make sure that you also follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook at Sam Kane Writer, KaneWriter. And keep writing. Just keep writing. Your story matters.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day, Sam.
Cheers. You too. Have a good one.